State. Mr. Rectenwald is an Army veteran with over 25 years of public safety experience. Chief Deputy Rectenwald.
Chairman Johnson, Ranking Member McCaskill, thank you for the invitation to come speak with you today. I'm here to talk to you about a horrific murder which took place in our rural community of Grant County, Washington. An incident that to this day remains the most dreadful scene I've encountered in my nearly 20-year law enforcement career. We received a call around noon, just 3 days before Christmas of 2016. A woman was out walking her dog near the Columbia River in a picturesque recreational area, which is popular with tourists, rock climbers, and endeared by residents. She said she found a dead body. What I saw when I arrived at the crime scene can only be described as straight out of a horror movie. The body was laying face down in the snow. Detectives found 13 bullet casings. 11 of those bullets found their mark, striking the victim's back of her head, her neck, and shoulder area. A box from a case of beer had a message written in Spanish secured to the victim's back with a kitchen knife, signed Golf Cartel. The victim was later identified as Jill Marie Sundberg, age 31, and mother of 4 young children. We later learned she was kidnapped by 5 men after an argument at a party. She was forced into this vehicle with those 5 men, driven 10 miles to this remote location, and was executed. The fear and brutality that this woman faced during that 10-mile drive and the moments just prior to her death will forever haunt case investigators. During the investigation, we developed a list of persons of interest who lived in the same trailer park where Jill occasionally lived. With the help of Customs and Immigration and Customs and Enforcement and the U.S. Marshal Service, we were able to pick up and interview 3 of those 5 men. All 5 were later arrested on murder, kidnapping, and other charges. What's important to know is that all 5 men were determined to be in this country illegally, and 1 had 2 prior felony convictions. The fact that these suspects were here illegally is not my point. It's that the shooter was still in the U.S. after being convicted of crimes and previously deported. So how did this happen? It turns out the alleged shooter had been previously deported in May of 2007 after his first felony conviction. He then illegally re-entered our country in June of 2013, was arrested on new felony charges in Grant County. He served out his sentence, and in January of 2014, he was released to immigration again. But prior to his deportation hearing, was allowed to post an $8,000 cash bail. He never returned for this hearing. No failure to appear warrants were ever issued. He was then later rearrested in September of 2015 in our county on new domestic violence charges. That's not how legal residents are treated when we miss court dates. You and I would have had warrants issued for our arrest. Meanwhile, after the shooter returned to our community, local law enforcement had opportunities to bring him back into custody during unrelated contacts. But due to the fact that no federal warrants were ever issued, he was never arrested. I was asked to provide insight on policies that Congress and the administration should be considering to stem the unlawful movement of people, illegal drugs, and other contraband into this country. Can we just start with some basic principles? It makes sense that after being convicted of a felony, you should not be allowed to bail out on your immigration hearing. If you abscond, warrants should be issued for your arrest. And ICE and local law enforcement should be able to pick you up. Now, I realize that this may present administrative and budgetary concerns, but we need easier access to the bad guys. This isn't about illegal immigrants who reside in our communities peacefully alongside of us. Allowing us these tools would help us distinguish between the truly law-abiding and those whose existence is to harm through violence, drug distribution, via enabling policies and practices. This certainly is not justice. Although I can empathize with this discussion about ripping families apart when it comes to immigration enforcement, I can assure you that the Sundberg family has been ripped apart because of lack of enforcement and current immigration laws. Lastly, I would like to publicly commend the hard work our men and women put into this complex investigation. We live by an unwritten code that dictates that we will never stop, they will never quit, and they will always work for the ones who no longer can speak for themselves. Their efforts have truly made our community a far safer place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Rectenwald. Julie, I'm going to start with you, but I'm not going to ask for an answer right away, but I just want you thinking about this for the very end. I do want to know, what information do you want? I mean, what haven't you been told from ICE? What can we get for you? So just kind of think about that, and I'm going to start with the Deputy Rectenwald. You've been in law enforcement how long?
Over 25 years now.
Have you seen a change in, you said that illegal residents wouldn't be treated the way we treated the illegal immigrants or illegal aliens. Have you seen a shift over those 20 years in terms of how we handle this?
I did. Sorry. Early in my career, I was a corrections officer for the same county, the Grant County Sheriff's Office, and ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, regularly came into our facility and regularly picked up people on immigration holds, ICE detainers. And for an example, I was a detective in 2008 where there was a rape in our county, and I was the investigator, and I knew the location of the supposed suspect. And I asked ICE if we could work together and try to pick this individual up, not only to help my investigation, but to get someone who was previously deported on felony drug charges out of our county. And in 2008, they said they could not help me. So my investigation took a lot longer than it should have. And while this investigation was going on, I finally made an arrest after we had a positive DNA hit from the crime lab. Picked the suspect up, arrested him, and while the suspect was awaiting trial, my female victim had died in a car crash, and charges were dropped. So to answer your question, all we want is some simple principles and some simple things to be able to help us during our investigation.
I think my thrust of my question, if policies have changed in terms of what, how you handle, legal residents versus illegal aliens, was that a law change? I mean, something imposed on you? Was this just administrative guidelines, executive orders? I mean, so in other words, do we have to legislate something here to correct this problem, or is this something can be done just through executive action?
I think
policy change.
I think the current laws in place should be effective. They're not. I think that people, there are some in the law enforcement, the career, that are afraid of lawsuit. They're afraid of the challenges that present.
Chief Severson, I made a swing through Wisconsin